Bonjour, Kinamagene Ireland Adishnikas, and welcome to the latest episode from the My Math Network. Today's episode featuring Chapter 12, Lesson 4, Hands-on Sides and Angles of Quadrilaterals. All right, welcome into today's lesson. Before we get started, if you do not have a copy of the paper for today, which starts on page 923, you should pause this video and go get it before starting in on the lesson. It's also not a bad idea to have both a protractor and a ruler for these kind of assignments, at least available to you. The essential question: how does geometry help me solve problems in everyday life? So we're going to begin right away with the packet today. As I mentioned, protractors and rulers aren't bad for these. Also, another hint: anytime you need a moment, because this video isn't set to give you 4 minutes to solve something, where if it only took you 2 minutes, you have to sit and listen to dead air for 2 minutes. It's expected that you're able to pause videos when you need to and unpause them when you're ready. You're welcome to do that at any time. You're welcome to rewind a video, come rewatch a section and try it again, whatever you need to do at home. I will generally, when having a screen up, tell you that that I'm about to clear the screen. I usually try to stall a second or two so that you can pause the video, but at worst case, you can always rewind it. So we're on 923, and I don't see any highlighted words this morning. There is a little definition of a quadrilateral at the top, and it says a quadrilateral is a polygon with 4 sides and 4 angles. Remember, polygons are made up of line segments that connect, but they don't overlap each other. There's no open space. And there are a lot of quadrilaterals that we work with, as you can see on the above image. So the first one under measured on 923 says measure the sides and angles of each figure to determine if any are congruent. Then determine if any sides are parallel. Complete the table. So remember, parallel means that they are lines or line segments that run with a consistent distance between them. They're never going to touch. So I look immediately at figure 1, and I can see that none of those sides are parallel. Figure 2, I think it's possible the top and bottom and the left and right potentially could be parallel. And one way I could check that is I could measure across here, measure across there, and see if it's the same length. This, at first glance, appears to be a rectangle. I can check that the distance is the same. You can also measure angles. If this angle is 90 degrees, both angles are 90 degrees, I have a very good idea that these are going to be parallel. 90 degrees are going to run straight up and down. They're not aiming towards each other. Same with figure 4, which appears at first glance to be a square. Just as a fun fact, a square is a specific type of rectangle. The only difference is all 4 sides are congruent. Rulers are necessary to figure out the opposite sides are congruent by measuring them, and make sure you measure with the ruler being at the corners, right at 0, so that you don't have an easy error. So let's look and see what they had here. We all agree that none of these are the same. And you can see very clearly these two are opposite. And this one appears to be longer than this. And they're definitely not keeping the same distance. They're not parallel. Figure 1 is none of these things. It is still a quadrilateral because there's 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. Once we measure, we could find that opposite sides, and that's a key word, they're opposite sides are congruent. So this side and this side are the same length, this side and this side. On figure 3, top and bottom, left and right, and same with figure 4, top and bottom, top and bottom, left and right. So on 2, 3, and 4, all of the opposite sides are congruent. Now checking if the angles are the same. If I measure this angle here and this angle here, they should be the same, opposite angles being congruent. And I could use this corner here, this obtuse angle and this obtuse angle. Remember, obtuse means greater than 90 degrees, or these acute ones that are less than 90 degrees. If these two are the same and everything else is congruent, we can deduce that they are parallel. Figures 3 and 4, we can measure both of these opposite angles, this one and this one, or this one and this one. Assuming they're both 90, by a glance, they're going to be the same, they're congruent. Even if this was 89 and this was 89, it still would be parallel, just like in figure 2. Figure 4 is going to operate the same as figure 3. So we look at sides and angles. Again, congruent means the same. One thing that is true about all of these, each figure has 4 sides and 4 angles. Now I'd like you to take a minute and make sure you write this in. And that's kind of the gist of all of these assignments. Write them in as we go, even when you have to pause the video. Go ahead and pause the video if you need to now. Welcome back. Let's go to the talk about it. And you're not required to write these in. You're welcome to pause the video and write them in. But let's talk. What common attributes do all of the figures have? They each had 4 sides and 4 angles, which you saw the sentence right above this talked about it here. And that tells us, because they have 4 sides and 4 angles, that it meets the definition of a quadrilateral. And you may have heard of a quad as something you can kind of ride around on the trails. It has 4 wheels. So a quad means 4. So that's going to tell you quadrilateral means 4 sides. Does figure 3 have all the attributes of figure 2? Yes. The opposite sides are parallel and congruent, and opposite angles are congruent. So we could deduce that parallelogram in figure 2, that figure 3 and figure 4 are also parallelograms. And that's going to be the interesting thing. You're going to see what a parallelogram is going to be a whole lot of different quadrilaterals. Maybe not the trapezoid though. That one's going to fall outside of this. All right, if you want to write these things down, you're welcome to pause the video, but you're not required to. If you're going to pause the video, go ahead and pause it now. Otherwise, I'll see you on the top of 924. All right, we're on the top of 924. Welcome back if you pause the video. And the triad says, measure the sides and angles of each figure to determine if any are congruent. Then determine if any sides are parallel. Now I can start looking and see these 2 sides are definitely not parallel. This one's not parallel. These 2 appear to be. This figure 2, this looks like an elongated version of the figure 2, the previous page. These 2 figures look like it could be on the, one could be the other one turned on the side. And let's bring up now if you want to go ahead and measure, you can tell us in which figures they're congruent by measuring the lengths, measure the angles, and then you can tell us if it's parallel. Go ahead and pause the video and return when you're ready. Apologize for that. All right, let's see what our answers were. Just like in the previous example, we found that 2, 3, and 4 all have opposite sides congruent, so these are the same length. These 2 are opposite, these 2 are opposite, these 2 are opposite, and these 2 are opposite. They're all congruent. These angles are the same, so that means that they're parallel. Go ahead and write that in. You can pause the video if you'd like. Welcome back. Let's go to another section of talk about it. Would you like to talk about it today? Again, you're welcome at the end to pause the video, but we'll talk about them as we go. All right, does figure 3 have all the attributes of figure 2? Yep. Figure 3 has opposite sides congruent and parallel, and opposite angles are congruent. So very similar to the previous. what are some additional attributes that figure 4 has that figure 3 doesn't? And that answer is 4 right angles. So when we measure figure 3, they're not 90 degrees. 90 degrees makes a right angle. If you'd like to pause the video before moving on, feel free to do such. Otherwise, let's talk about the other two. Explain how figure 2 is a special kind of polygon. Figure 2 is a closed figure made up of 4 line segments that do not cross each other. That by itself is the definition of a polygon. In addition, it has both pairs of opposite sides parallel and congruent. So now we can kind of get a specific type of polygon. Not 5-sided, so it's not a pentagon. It's not 3-sided, so it's not a triangle. It's not 8-sided, so we know it's not an octagon. Oh, it's 4 sides. And then we also know opposite sides are parallel and congruent. So which figure does not have any of the attributes listed in the table? That's figure 1. Again, if you'd like to pause the video, you're welcome to do such now. All right, now let's turn to the top of 925 and practice it. With each of these, I will tell you when to pause the video. I'll let you do it. You unpause the video, you come back, and then we'll discuss it. So go ahead on this part and say, measure the sides and angles of each figure, determine if any are congruent or parallel. And then we'll do 7 to 13 here. So go ahead, pause the video to do number 7 and unpause it when you're ready. Let me pause it now. Welcome back. So looking at figure 1, that's right here. The opposite sides are not parallel and they're not the same length, so they're not congruent. These opposite angles are very clearly not congruent. And it has 4 sides and 4 angles. Now let's look at figure 2. Go ahead and pause the video there. Welcome back. What did you determine on this one as far as attributes? Opposite sides are parallel and congruent. The angles are congruent, so this angle and this angle are the same, and so are these two right here. And it has 4 sides and 4 angles. So I want you now to answer 9 to 11. You may pause the video now. Welcome back. Let's see how you did. Which figures have all the attributes of figure 1? Well, none, other than the 4 sides and 4 angles, but not all of the attributes. Which figures have all the attributes of figure 2? Actually, the rest of them do. And which figures have all the attributes of figure 3? So 3 and 5 are similar. 90-degree angle, 90-degree angle, opposite sides congruent. These two do not have 90-degree angles. That's why 2 and 4 are a little separate. Let's go ahead and write those in if you need to pause the video. Otherwise, let's bounce to here. We'll go ahead and do 12 and 13. Go ahead and pause the video. All right, welcome back. Let's see how you did. Which figures have 4 right angles? 3 and 5. Which have 4 equal sides? 4 and 5. So that's always important to tell. Because as we go through here, we'll be using this information to identify the different shapes. Now let's go one more here. Number 14, looking at this figure from Chichen Itza, place I would absolutely love to visit. I know some friends who've been there, and to say I'm slightly jealous is an understatement. I may have brought it up once or twice over the decades. Let's see if maybe we can convince administration for a field trip. Maybe. All right, complete the attributes of the red quadrilateral outlining one side of Chichen Itza Pyramid in Mexico. There is one pair of blank opposite sides. So there's 2 possible words here. Which one do you think it is? Then there is a different pair of blank opposite sides. And opposite angles are not blank, but there are two sets of congruent angles. Go ahead and pause the video, see if you can fill those in, and then pause it when you're ready. Welcome back. So there's one pair of parallel. You see the top and bottom. They are the same distance apart here as they are here. There is a different pair of congruent opposite sides. These two sides are the same length. Opposite angles are not congruent. So this angle and this angle, and this one are not congruent. But there are two sets of congruent angles. This one and this one, and then this one and this one. They're not opposite sides, however. All right, so now you're going to be able to go into the assignment. Homework helper will always kind of give you that reminder of what we've talked about, so you can kind of look at it again without thumbing through the pages, although you're welcome to thumb through the pages. You're going to answer the questions. Again, parallel and congruent are important words today. Problem solving, this is similar to the sheets and needs of one. Explain one way to determine if a quadrilateral has congruent angles. Think about which tools you may use. Which one doesn't belong, and explain your reasoning. Tell me why one of these doesn't belong. And then you have the vocabulary check. When you've completed the assignment, make sure that it gets submitted in the classroom. If for some reason you're not going to be here and you need to take a picture of it, you can take a picture of it and send it to me at mireland@sagchipschool.net, and I can print it off and turn it in that way. If you have any questions, please reach out to me at the above email address. Let's keep learning your math. Have a minute, Gijigat, and wa, mama